If you have any questions, specific questions for our panelists at any time during the webinar, you can click on that Q&A function and submit it there. Okay, so questions go into the Q&A button. And if you want to say hello, put your hand up, say hi, tell us how you're feeling, by all means, use the chat function for that. My name is Daniel Martin. I'm the host of Health Matters and Life and Style on CNA 938 and Body and Soul on Channel 5. And I'm so excited about today's topic. It's a topic I've been covering for years on radio, but I've really seen a shift in the last couple of years as more and more of us are realizing how important it is for each and every one of us to take charge of our mental health and our mental resilience. And our experts today are going to help us do that. We're going to have a great conversation. Let me introduce you to them right now. We're joined first off by Maria Plengsangtip, who is partner and consultant psychologist of iGROW CorpHealth Private Limited. She's got really great experience in working with children, with teens, with working adults from diverse backgrounds, looking into their well-being. And Maria also has a special interest in health technology and devices. I know that she continues to develop exciting programs for her corporate clients, utilizing new tools and devices. And she's also committed to developing future leaders and lectures in the Singapore University of Social Sciences in Counseling and Human Resource Management. Maria, good morning to you. How are you today?
Good morning, Daniel. Glad to see you here today as well.
I'm so excited. I can't wait for the insight that you're going to grant us today. We're also joined by Swee on the panel. Swee is a development and transformational coach. She has over 20 years of experience working with large corporate clients, banks, SMEs, and startups. She brings with her a combination of strategy, finance, and marketing experience from her management consulting days, combined with organizational and operational experience from working in line management. She's known to help her clients quickly develop pragmatic, actionable solutions for their challenges, and has also deep expertise in supporting clients through the psychological impact of change, helping them grow mindsets. In fact, one thing that she does specialize in, which we'll be touching on, is the idea of hypnotherapy. Can't wait to hear about that. Swee, good morning to you.
Good morning, Daniel.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. I'm sure a lot of my listeners and viewers of the webinar right now is like, hypnotherapy, what's that about? We'll find out. Don't worry. Serina Tan is also here. Serina is an established strategic communications leader and an executive coach, 2 decades of experience in integrated communications consultant. She's an honoree of Campaign Asia Pacific's 40 Under 40 and is very passionate about enhancing the professional standards and mental well-being of marketing and communication professionals worldwide. Hi, Serina. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Morning, Daniel. Looking forward and very excited about our discussion.
Absolutely. We want to build the mental resilience for next year, just like any health issue. Mental health and mental wellness, there are things that we can do to the way you improve your blood pressure, the way you manage your weight, the way you manage your heart condition. Likewise, there are tools, tips, and tricks that we can use for our mental health and mental resilience. It's so important to think about the positive state of mental health where you are right now. I mean, how you think, how you feel, how you act in ways to create positive impact on your physical and social well-being. After all, it can impact all areas of life. And as we know today, there is that blurred boundary between home and work, isn't there? So we need to understand how to demarcate and how to find balance. It's a big issue for a lot of Singaporeans. After all, what we've seen recently, of course, is these startling figures. 1 in 7 people in Singapore have experienced a mental disorder in their lifetime. This according to a Singapore mental health study from 2016. And 3 out of 4 who face the mental disorder in their lifetime don't seek professional help. And that is worrying indeed. That means you're dealing with it on your own, potentially suffering in silence. COVID-19 has brought about unprecedented shifts into our lives. The fear of the virus, changes in our daily routine, social isolation, and then there's the economic uncertainty, stresses that have all impacted the mental well-being of each and every one of us. Now, during this pandemic, here's what we've seen. About 13% of a surveyed population reported experiencing symptoms of depression or anxiety in the period from May to June. This according to an IMH cross-sectional study from June of 2021, so just from this year alone. And on our Bloomer.sg social listings, we found that about 50% of mentions on socials from July to August involved issues on mental health. And that percentage is pretty much consistent with data from January of this year. But I don't want people to feel like, oh dear, this is an epidemic. We don't know what to do. This is getting worse. No, what this means is more and more people realize and recognize and have experienced this and are acknowledging it and are naming it. And that means we're on the first step towards managing it and controlling it better for each and every one of us. I want to dive into the discussion very soon, but a quick reminder, anytime you have any questions, send them through via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I want to get to know all of you guys a little bit better, if you don't mind. Who are we talking to at this webinar? Let's chat a little bit through this poll that I'm about to launch. So hands on the mouse, I'd love it if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are. All anonymous. We're not pinning it to who you are. Don't worry. I just want to get a vibe and a sense of who we're chatting to. Are you a business owner or a people manager or none of the above? Go ahead and click one of the two options right in front of you on the screen, please. I'd love to see those results and see exactly who we're chatting to as well. I'm going to pull up my chat box so I can see everybody sending in their questions and answers as well. Loving the fact that you guys are here this morning. Thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about who we're talking to. So are you a business owner or people manager? Well, 65% of you say no, not the above. 35% of you say business owner, people manager. All right, good to know. Welcome to Executive Insights, everybody. And the good news is all the tools and management approaches that we're going to talk about today applies to each and every one of us. I do want to get to know you a little bit better. Here's another poll, picking up on one of the points that I raised just a moment ago. Have you experienced any of the following feelings in the last few days? Again, completely anonymous. We just want to get a vibe of what everybody's feeling. A couple of options. You can pick more than one. Stress, anxiety, depression, panic disorders, rage, irritableness, sadness or loneliness, helplessness, or an inability to focus. I know, especially with the year-end festive season, I felt a lot of the stress coming on as well. How are you guys faring? Go ahead and pick one or more of the options, and I'll just get a sense and get a vibe and use some of this to really try and steer our discussion. So please go ahead and select the one that applies to you today. That's the best part about being in a webinar. We really get to interact with you better than like sitting in a hall, right? In a hotel room where you're just sitting in the crowd and nobody can hear from you for most of the session. I'm going to make sure that we hear from you guys as much as possible. Now, I'm going to bring up those results of that poll, and 70% of you say that stress is definitely something that you've been feeling, all feeling that end of year period, aren't you? Another 50% said anxiety. Another 50% also said inability to focus. Irritableness, 45% of you mentioned recognizing that in your life. And about 23% of you chose sadness, loneliness, or helplessness as well. I'm so glad that you're willing to share and able to talk to us about this, because we've got the tools and the management approaches, as well as the executive insights that can help you take charge of all of that. Now that we've got to know you a little bit better, let's set the scene. Marie, I'd love to start with you if you don't mind, because every time I've talked about mental health, mental resilience, mental stress on my radio shows or my television shows over the last 15 years on broadcast media, there's always this stigma, this tag attached to it. Somehow people don't want to talk about it. And we saw in those earlier statistics, people not seeking help, even though they're experiencing some of these symptoms as well. What are some of the mental health challenges or differences between mental challenges versus mental illness? Very distinct, aren't they, Maria?
Thank you, Daniel, for that question. I'm really happy that we're starting with this, because oftentimes when people hear the word mental health, they equate it to illnesses right away. And it becomes really hard for us to have the conversation when people feel like, oh, if I talk about it, people must think that I'm crazy. And so by starting with this question, I hope that everyone here would feel okay and comfortable. And I want to share that in looking at mental health, we need to see it as a continuum. Right. And you can just imagine like a traffic light sort of thing, where healthy is green, right? Coping is a little bit more of that yellow or orange, and red is illness and or sickness. For many of us, we aim to be in the green zone, where we're healthy, we feel competent, we're able to work, we take care of our families and everything. However, there are plenty of times during this COVID pandemic that we feel a lot of the challenges that we're struggling, we're trying to cope because there are a lot of changes in our life. And that's why I'm not surprised that a lot of you participants here today, that you're feeling more stressed, irritated, frustrated, because we're trying to find a way to just cope with the things. But does it mean that we're ill or sick? No, we're just in that yellow and orange zone. However, if we do not deal with it well, we're not coping well, we're not seeking support along the way, there are ways, right? There are some times that we would move all the way to the red zone. This is where we need to seek medical help. Right. So I guess I hope that I put that in place, that yes, we in our lifetime will move through this continuum, even if we're in the red zone sometimes, if we seek help. Right. If we seek help and not wait for 10 or 20 years, we can come back to the coping zone or even the healthy zone. I hope that helps to differentiate between the challenges, the illnesses that we need to look into it as a continuum.
And the good message there is that it's perfectly normal to experience anything on that spectrum, correct?
Yes, and it's okay to seek help. It's just like any other physical health that we have, right? When we don't feel well, we go see a doctor. And then if we're not feeling our best, then we seek help.
It's not a weakness. It's not a sign of weakness. That's something else that a lot of people fear, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's bear that in mind.
Why people don't seek help, that it's something that I should be able to deal with myself. And I hope that we can try, everyone here, to try to change this thought and this myth about mental health as well.
I agree. Let's do that with this session. I know we can't solve world peace in 1 hour, but we're going to do a lot. I want to remind everybody there's going to be a Q&A segment at the end of the session, but anytime you've got questions, send them across. If I find them suitable for what's happening right now, I'll definitely bring it through to our panelists as well. Serina, Sweelin, let me come to you. Have you both seen, I'm curious, some kind of increase in terms of clients or cases during this period? And what are some of the more common mental health challenges that your clients or cases are bringing up to you? Serina, let me start with you if you don't mind.
Sure. So I'm seeing a lot of interest in our mental well-being workshops. And Daniel, as you pointed out earlier, this is largely due to growing awareness about the effects of our pandemic, the effects that it's having on people. And also what I'm seeing is the desire from leadership with this awareness to genuinely want to help their teams to better manage their mental well-being. So in terms of the common mental health challenges I'm seeing amongst my clients, largely from the marketing and communications industry, the first thing is high workload and long hours. So people are feeling a bit more stressed, overworked, more exhausted, a sense of a burnout. And I think this is largely because of digital intensity. So, with everything being moved online, that's good and bad, right? It makes us more interconnected in a sense, but also at the same time, our brains have to deal with a daily barrage of messages, chats, meetings, and this causes an erosion of work-life balance. It also means that with the move to digital, it also means that a lot of social interactions from work takes place virtually now, right? There's no more a lack of water cooler interactions that we used to be very used to, going, trips to the pantry, to chit chat, making small talk. So some people are feeling a sense of isolation. And then when working from home, I think there are some challenges in managing people remotely, building rapport, communicating with colleagues, and addressing bosses' expectations. So these are causing stress to people. So if you look at that, sometimes it's not so much about the time that we work, but it's the emotional energy that goes into it, the stressing ourselves out, sometimes dealing with thoughts that are not real, thoughts about the future. Oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? And will there be another lockdown next month, right? And then the other thing that we're seeing that contributes to the stress is with the great vaccination, a lot of people are leaving their jobs. And so the people who are left behind are expected to take on more work as well. And then there's another group of segment, largely women. If working from home, they have to juggle multiple roles as mother, as wife, as manager, as mentor, as employee. So these lines get a little bit blurred. and it has a profound impact on the quality of life and productivity at work. Then the other thing that I'm seeing amongst the clients is that with a perceived, growth in workload, there's also not enough time to exercise, not enough time to eat well. A lot of people are not eating properly. So this sedentary lifestyle has also resulted in some weight and health issues and causing people to have some self-esteem issues as well. So people are feeling less good about themselves.
It's all linked. It's if you'll pardon the pun, it's all body and soul, isn't it? I mean, we have to realize that we're treating the whole person. So those physical aspects are also weighing on our mental aspects as well. And we have to look at it as a whole. And there are tools, there are approaches that we can use, and we're going to talk more about them in a moment. But Swee, very quickly as well, I do want to bring you in because your clients and your persons that you're seeing, I'm sure, bring up very similar aspects to what Serina mentioned.
Absolutely. So she's talked about it more from a corporate and a workplace, and I'd like to just share to augment what she has said. I'd like to talk about the clients who come to see me privately, especially for the hypnotherapy / counseling type sessions. So what I'm seeing is a lot of the people showing up have histories of anxiety and depression or nervousness, really, right? It's a spectrum. But with COVID, it's sort of heightened these feelings for all the reasons that Serina has correctly described. But I'm also seeing an uptick in a particular demographic, sort of like young people in their mid-20s. And I use the term young because I consider myself old by now, right? But what I find really interesting about this age demographic is usually in their 20s, people should be out there exploring their careers, traveling, finding a sense of financial freedom for the first time, right? And having that careers take off. And that whole imagery in their minds is gone because of COVID. Now, added to that, on a very subliminal level, what we're seeing is young people working from home, and especially in a Singapore context, a lot of people cannot afford to move out of their parents' home. So suddenly there's this cross identity going on. I'm still this dependent child stuck in my parents' home from 9 to 5 and beyond, right? So that has caused a lot of perceptions around, I'm not keeping up with my peers, I can't see what's going on, I'm falling behind. And that causes a lot of stress as well.
That's a good point to raise. I'm curious to know more about how we can manage that. Let's move on to another point, which has been raised by one of our attendees, actually. Somebody sent in a question in the Q&A, and it ties in perfectly to what I want to talk about. This person asks, how do we know when we need to seek professional help? I mean, that is an important question after all. Maria, if somebody does not know that they have mental health challenges, how do they identify them? And what are the triggers or signs that they should look for professional help? Going to that other end of the traffic light that you talked about.
Okay, so I guess a lot of this, right, boils down to you knowing yourself, having that awareness. And I do have a little bit of like a way to just do a bit of a check-in, right? So I'll just call it like, think, feel, and then act. Okay, so think, feel, and act. And really related to what Serina said just now, what are your thoughts like? Do you have more of that negative thoughts? Do you feel that you are not able to concentrate, to focus? Tasks that takes you 1 hour to do, usually you're not able to focus well. It takes you 3 hours to do, and then you just cannot manage it well. That you don't see any hope in the future, you see that everything is a failure. So more of that negative thoughts. So that is the thinking. The feeling, which are also linked to the thoughts, right, are this feeling of overwhelmed, frustrated, irritated, sadness. All these are more of that negative feelings, right? So that's a feeling part that's linked to all how we are in our mental health. The act itself, the behavior itself is our energy level, right? Do we feel that we can't get out of bed? Are we not able to get enough sleep? Some people sleep more, some people sleep less, some people eat more as a way of coping, some people eat less. So actually there's quite a lot of things, right, that tells us that, hey, we're not doing right. So all of these are some signs, but I want to share with you 2 words, right? So how do you know then if it's something that I need to seek help or not? So the 2 words are change and consistency. So how does this link to all the think, feel, and act? So change is change from your usual self. Nobody knows you better than yourself. So if you detect that there is a change in yourself, right, that you used to be energetic, you like to go out, well, I mean, there's limitations to that at the moment, but if you're able to sleep well and everything, but then you notice that there's a change, that's the first one. Consistency means that due to this change is consistent for more than 2 weeks. Okay, so there's more than 2 weeks. If it's just one day that you're not able to sleep due to a work project deadline that's coming up, that's still okay. That's just part of us coping well. However, if it lasts longer than 2 to 3 weeks, you feel that you're not within the control that you have, then that's where I would say just seek help. There's so many different, in Singapore, there are many different hotlines, many different counseling system available. Then give them a call, do a quick appointment, just to do a check-in.
And if all else fails, you can start with your GP as well, right? Just go to a family practitioner maybe.
Yes.
That's a great tip. And I like the way that you phrased it. Basically, when it's affecting your quality of life, it's the same categorization that they use for all health issues. If a cataract is not bothering, but if it's affecting quality of life, that's when you need to see a doctor. So you see, just like any health issue, we need to manage and think about it in the same way as well. Great tips, Maria. I see lots of questions coming in for our next point that I too was going to raise. You guys could be hosting this webinar as well because you're preempting me. I love that, because a lot of you are asking me about, hey, what's this hypnotherapy all about? Swee Lin, people are curious because when the roots to our problems maybe are not so apparent, hypnotherapy apparently can offer an option. And there seems to be a bit of a misconception about hypnotherapy. We've seen it in the movies, you know, but then that's what we see in media, unfortunately. Can you share with us maybe some of the evidence-based science and research behind it and how it could help?
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Daniel. Great question. So I think, as you said, we've seen the stage shows, we've seen the TV movies. There's usually a pendulum brought out, or it's like, look into my eyes, right? And hypnotherapy is really not that. It is actually very scientific. So when my clients come to see me, I do tell them, you know, don't worry, I'm not going to make you cluck like a chicken or scratch your head like a monkey. Hand over your credit card, none of that, right? It's really much more about thinking of how the mind works in several ways. So first of all, there's the thinking mind, and that thinking mind is what we call our conscious mind. It tends to be much more analytical. Then there's the emotional mind, and that's what we feel the subconscious mind is run on. And when you actually put someone into hypnotherapy, it's really adjusting the brain wave state. So our conscious mind, our thinking mind, we're typically in a brain wave called beta. And you can do this when you scan clients or people in hypnotherapy. When we're taking them into hypnotherapy, we're calming the mind down, accessing the subconscious, and the mind will actually move through scans into alpha initially when they're more relaxed, eventually delta and theta. So in these different brain waves, sorry, Daniel, you're on mute.
No, because I realized you were carrying on talking, so I didn't want to interrupt. Carry on.
Okay,
please.
All right. So when you're getting to those stages, we access people's emotional states. And in that state, my clients are speaking, talking, laughing. They're always going to be in control of the session. I'm just there really neutrally to facilitate. They might come to see me with a symptom. For example, I've got insomnia and they're trying to fix insomnia, right? Which is, you know, usually related to stress. But we apply psychoanalytical tools while they're in a hypnosis so they can identify the true root cause of where this is coming from and when did that belief or thought start. Then we reframe it and help our clients let it go and set them free because they now understand the true root cause rather than we're just dealing with the symptom.
That's so interesting. But do you do this for all your clients or just some?
I do this for the clients who are willing to try hypnotherapy, and usually the ones who have a lot of openness and courage to do this, we generally get to the real root cause in the first session. So it's not like multiple sessions. In the first session already, they're digging into root cause beliefs and working at letting those go.
How interesting to explore this option. But I do want to be clear, this isn't, we're not saying it's curative. This is not a bam, you're cured of your mental anxiety or depression. This is not that.
No, it's helping them definitely find the root cause, understand themselves better. And then in a customized hypnotherapy recording we give them, it helps suggest, well, the mind is very suggestible in hypnosis. We're suggesting new helpful beliefs and lifestyles that they want to embrace and adopt. So everything is customizable to each client.
What an interesting modality, something that could be explored as part of the armamentarium that we have, the multiple tools that we have in terms of managing mental health, mental resilience, building that resilience as well. Ladies, what do you say we talk to our webinar attendees a little bit more again and get to know them? I'm going to bring up another poll right now, and I'd love it if each and every one of you attending will just jump in and tell us a little bit, picking up on something that Swee just mentioned, the root causes. Have you been able to identify them for yourself as well? What's your current level of stress compared to the pre-pandemic period? That's what I'd like to know a little bit more about. Is it less than before, same as before, slightly more than before, moderately higher than before, or extremely higher than before? We're getting really specific here. I'd love to know what you think. What's your current level of stress compared to the pre-pandemic period? Tell us, and once again, completely anonymous. We want to get a feel of who we're talking to and what you'd like to hear. At the same time, I'm seeing lots of your questions coming through our Q&A chat. I can't wait to address many of them in our Q&A segment. I'll be bringing one or two of them up as well during the discussion here. If you want to, you can leave your name when you ask a question. If you don't want to, that's fine as well. And bear in mind as well that if you want to ask a question on behalf of somebody else, somebody you know, a family member, go ahead. Let's bring up the results of that poll, the levels of stress that we're all feeling right now. What's your current level of stress compared to pre-pandemic? This is interesting, very interesting. Roughly split between slightly more than before and moderately higher than before. 37 and 36% choosing those options. 13% say same as before. 9% say extremely higher than before, and 6% say less than before. Fascinating. Okay, so slightly or moderately is where the majority of you are lying. Can I get a little bit more of a sense of who we're talking to as well? I've got one more quick poll for you guys, if you don't mind. It's poll number 4, which is identifying a little bit of your primary causes of stress. So again, going to what Swee was talking about, the idea of where it's coming from. Tell us, what are your primary causes of stress right now, especially for people who chose moderately or slightly more than before? Is it financial burden? Is it work? Is it working from home? Is it the COVID-19 period or the uncertainty of what's happening now? Is it children? Is it spouse or parents? Or is it the idea that was raised early on as well, the idea of perhaps falling behind in your career? Go ahead and pick one. I'd love to see those results. I don't know why I keep wanting to say my station hotline number, but you don't have to SMS or WhatsApp. It's a webinar. You can straight away select an option right now. So tell us, what do you think are your primary causes of stress? Understanding the root cause can give us all a lot of insight, I think, because then we can try and address that and work to manage that as well. Let's talk about the results of that particular poll. 68% of you say work is the cause, the primary cause of stress. Another 48% chose COVID-19 or the uncertainty of this period. Multiple choices were available, by the way, so some of you chose more than one, and that's why something like 32% said working from home. So the top 3 options: work, the COVID-19 period, and working from home. Great. Now we know a little bit more about what really is top of mind for each and every one of you, because I have to bring up this point about how we can draw that line between the divide of working and home life as well, especially now that we're working in this hybrid environment, right? So Serina, let me come to you with that question. How do we draw the line? I mean, I'm literally in my study hosting a webinar right now. Many people are at home watching this right now and maybe also answering work WhatsApps on the side as well. How do we draw a line between work and home? Any methods you can suggest?
Yes, Daniel, it's really a great question, especially post-pandemic. We're going into this hybrid environment even more. So there are four key things, I think. First is communication or over communication. And, with this digital scene right now, digital work environment, a lot of times we feel a bit more isolated. We lose a sense of social connections with our colleagues. So over time, people tend to get used to it, and it's dangerous because you tend to communicate less and less. But we need to emphasize on communications, especially during this period. And in the past, face-to-face communications is always the best. But now, without face-to-face, with lesser face-to-face interaction, what can we do, right? We could get into a phone call. We could make sure that we instead of WhatsApping our colleagues, we could talk to them about it, or we could do a virtual meeting like right now what we're doing, right? So this communication is important in the sense of establishing your availability for meetings. And, if I'm a mom, I have to go pick up my kids at 5. I have to tell my colleagues that, hey guys, I won't be available at 5 today. I'll be working from 8 to 5. Instead of just going quietly, right? It's going to stress you. If your boss calls you at 5, then you're going to panic, right? So that communication is very key to the people you work with, to your clients, to your bosses, to your subordinates, making sure that people know where you are, what you're doing. I mean, you don't have to really give details into what you're doing. Just say, hey guys, I'm not available during that time for a call. Then the second thing I think is very, very important is to have a transition into work and off work. So in the past, we had a commute to work, right? In the mornings, we make up, women, we get ready, we dress up. And nowadays, that there is no transition required. Some people even, they hop onto a call, hop onto a Zoom meeting right after rolling off bed.
Straight out of bed, open the laptop. No, this is true. I know a lot of people that do that. Yeah,
exactly. So, so even though commuting used to require time, it provided the mental and physical cue for us to make that transition into that workday and at the end of the workday. So now what we can do is, instead of jumping into our morning meeting or checking our emails the moment we wake up, what we could do is to spend a little bit of time walking around a neighborhood park, doing some simple stretching exercises or breathing exercises, making time to make breakfast, have breakfast with the family, taking a shower, changing out your PJs, and, to do something that has nothing to do with work during the time that you would otherwise spend commuting. And then at the end of the workday, the act of simply shutting down and closing your laptop and stowing away your laptop signifies the cue for the brain to make that mental transition. So that is important as well. And then the third thing is to create a physical workspace. I know this is a challenge, especially in Singapore.
It's hard. You talked about the confined spaces that we're living in. I know some families with home-based learning, they're sharing the dining table with the kids and everybody's got an iPad or a laptop or something like that.
Exactly. So what is the solution then, living in a small environment, right? In a small apartment? A lot of people are working off the living room sofa. I know a lot of people are working off the dining room table. And what we can do is to use smaller cues to set workplace boundaries. So it's really simply setting up your laptop in the morning. And then at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you're ready to log off work. Just keep the laptop away, out of sight, out of mind. And you'll be able to draw and establish that boundaries. And when it's time to log off, please log off, really disengage. A lot of us, some of us are addicted to emails. Some of us are addicted to work. Some of us are addicted to social media and WhatsApp. So what we can do for this to disengage is to set a calendar reminder every day to signal that it's time to start wrapping things up. And then as much as we can, shut off the notifications from our phone so that we don't get that beep every time we get an email or message that's going to disturb our home life. And it's also not necessary to send or reply to non-urgent emails. sometimes we put the stress on ourselves, right? But if you think about it, if you take a step back, is it really necessary? Is it a life and death situation? If I don't respond to this email tonight, can I wait until tomorrow morning when I start? A lot of times you'll find that it's actually possible and it's within us. And to help us disengage better, it's also useful to loop in other people. So, making sure that we fix an appointment, for dinner with a friend or with a family, or telling our kids, if we're moms, right? Telling our kids, hey, I'll take you out for a stroll at the park. So these are important physical cues as well, to both physically and mentally end the workday.
Great tips to help us all focus, creating routines for ourselves, making sure that we're adhering to it. Take advantage of technology. There are do not disturb functions that you can switch on your mobile devices to create those blockout hours for yourself so that your colleagues are aware of that as well. And, I've even covered studies on my radio show and TV show where people have identified that when the beep comes in from a WhatsApp or a ding from email, they've noticed elevated heart rates because people feel anxiety about the fact that I have to answer immediately. Creating routine and making sure that communicating to the team that no, after 6 o'clock, I will not be replying. And likewise, you don't have to reply as well. We can send it at first thing in the morning at 9 a.m. to try and make sure that everybody's on the same page. I want to tackle this point a little bit because lots of people are asking questions about how employers can tackle the post-pandemic stress. Earlier on, we had a question about some topics or some advice that you guys might have in terms of how managers and line managers can help institute this as well. Thanks for the questions coming in, by the way, everybody, through our Q&A function. Our Q&A segment is starting very soon. So one of the questions that came in from our viewer was, how do we manage change? We see lots of resistance when organizations move towards agile transformation. The majority are not willing to change. Let's talk about how employers can tackle post-pandemic stress. Maria, I'd like to start with you on this.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I believe that change is happening, right, in all the different companies right now. And there's always this move, this push to change, to adjust, and with the environment that we're going into. And so it's not a surprise that people are just a bit resistant. And why is it so, right? As humans, I think we enjoy our comfort zone. We like to be aware that we feel safe. If something is working well, we don't want to change, right? And if there's any new introduction, we'll be asking why. Why do we have to change? Is it really necessary? And all these things. But as we push towards this Industry 4.0 in Singapore, I think that all of us have to be equipped with the skills and everything. But I also acknowledge that a lot of times at iGROW, we work with over 400 corporates, SMEs and MNCs. A lot of times when our clients first contact us, it's when there's already a fire, that something bad is happening, and then they want us to push to do something. And I just want to take this opportunity to share that if you're a business owner, if you're a person manager or anything, I think we need to take a step back and see what else we can do before the fire starts, how we can fireproof our company, our people, so that we can be strong. And I want to share with you like the 4 Ps. Okay, so I have a lot of like different things here. Hopefully it
I love it. I love it. I'm writing it all down, and I know my viewers are as well.
Right, because I guess, we're humans. We're not computers or anything that we cannot be programmed and then to change and to adjust right away. There needs to be things in place. So the first P, right? So the 4 Ps, the first P is policy. Okay, this is the crucial one right now due to all the changes, that the company needs to show that there is a commitment towards well-being. And this could be boiled down to, like Serina was mentioning as well, right? Do we have a policy for hybrid working? Moving forward, I think this is going to be like a hot topic, and it is related to mental health because people want to have that autonomy, that freedom to feel that, hey, I am going to be working. It doesn't matter what time I'm working as long as I get my things done. So having that policy in place can be very helpful. And not only that, I think many of you here are familiar with like a employee assistance program. If something bad happened, then where are the support? So that would be one piece on the policy. Now, the second P is the people. Policy doesn't work if you don't have the right people. And the most important people are also the leaders and the champions. And being an effective leader requires them to be task focused as well as relationship focused. And how do we ensure that they're relationship focused? The leaders must be trained and be in the skills to show empathy. Right. I think this empathy is like a huge word here, but if I can just unpack some of the things, right, that how we can lead with empathy. And at iGROW, one of the popular workshops and programs that we have right now is how you can show support during difficult time, during times of change. How do leaders identify people who are in need of help? Second is, how do you approach them with ease? Not because something is wrong and then you're spotlighting people with the problems, but how do you want to just check in a nice way? And then the third part of this is to refer when you're stuck. So how do leaders have to do all this? So this is part of the P for people. The third P is practice. I believe that during this time, we have been going for all these different workshops and seminars and everything. We have equipped ourselves with different skills. However, competent doesn't mean confidence all the time, right? So part of what the company can do, if you are training leaders and everything, we need to ensure that there's continuity by having a practice. We're giving a space for the leaders, the champions to practice the skills so that they can become more confident. And this could include having a group coaching session, leadership sessions, so that they can practice. And not only that, everyone else who are watching or observing know that, hey, the company means business. This is something serious that the company wants to look into. Now, the last P is program. This is something that many of us are familiar with. These are the talks and the things that we're putting into the culture of the company and to provide support. And Daniel, if I can just link back right to the question about the mental health continuum. When we're healthy, some of the programs that we need to have would be promotion-based, right? How we can continue to be healthy or even healthier. How do we ensure that we, learn mindfulness so that if something happened, we know how to protect ourselves? That's a promotion piece. And if it is coping, many of us are feeling it right now. What are some of the programs that help us to prevent us from going into the red zone, right? And then there must be programs as well that is, I would call it intervention. If some of us in the company are already in the red zone, what are some of the intervention? What are some of the supports that can be given to them? I'm not going to go into the details of the programs because I believe Serina and Swee would have a lot more to say as well. But these are going to be the 4 Ps: policy, people, practice, and program.
Remember
if you
that.
have this in place, it'll be very helpful for the company to move towards a more positive, a healthier culture. And last piece, there's so much to unpack, right? There's a lot of things to unpack. So what I'll be doing is I'll just key into the chat, a little bit of a resource guide that my team have put together about a remote team. How do you manage a remote team? And I hope that the participants here will find something helpful.
And check it out and try it out for themselves. I love that. Sorry to jump in, Maria, but we're running out of time. We've just got over 10 minutes left, but that's I love the fact that many of you have been, my panelists have been chatting with you directly, our viewers as well in the chat function. We're going to try and address as many questions as possible, but we've just over 10 minutes left. I want to get to the Q&As that all our audience is sending through. You ladies okay with that? If we can jump straight in, let's see what everybody is asking. So your Q&As that you have been sending through, send it through right now. You can leave your name. You don't have to leave your name. It can be anonymous. That's all absolutely fine. All right, let's get to some questions. Right now, some of them have been sent really, really early on in the segment. Let's talk about this one that says, someone that I know is having some mental health issues, but they're too sensitive or too stubborn to seek help. How can we help? Maria, your quick 1-minute response to that. I know 1 minute is very hard, but we got a lot of questions to try. I'm so sorry.
Okay, be there for them.
Yeah.
Right? Be there for them. Listen. If they're not ready, be patient with them. Listen, provide that support, whatever you need. No need to give advice. Just listen to them and gently share that perhaps there are some people like psychologists, counselors, coaches out there. Why don't you explore some of these options to help you? when they're ready. If they're not ready, just be with them. I think that's the most effective thing that you can do. If you push them, they come for a session. When they're not ready, it's not going to be effective as well.
It's very hard though to be, because you're caring for someone. You know, it's your someone, it's your loved ones, your family member. At the same time, you don't want to be, you want to be there, but you don't want to be judgmental as well and say that this person is like, why are you so stubborn? Why you don't want to go for help? That kind of thing. That's hard, right?
Yes, but then it's a word that we use as well, right? So like, why are you so stubborn? Why you're not getting, you're telling the person that they are a problem. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to be the problem. So we need to be careful of the words that we use and say that, yes, I know you're having some difficulties at the moment. I'll do my best to help. But if there's anything else that we can do, perhaps we can explore seeing a professional, a coach or something like that.
Thanks very much. We got another question that asks, there's a need, oh, I beg your pardon, wrong one. Let's do this one. I've recently been told that the job I was doing is no longer needed due to restructuring, and this was done through an email. Things are getting very impersonal and insensitive. How do we cope with such abrupt changes thrusted into our lives? Great point. I'd love to hear from each of you. Serina, Swee, some advice for this person in this situation. Very true. Serina, let's start with you. Oh, Serina's looking for her unmute button, I think. The mouse has disappeared.
Yeah, Danielle, I'm looking for the question. Could you repeat the question, please?
This person was told that their job is no longer required and a redundancy, basically, and it was done via email. And this person feels that it's being very impersonal nowadays. Your advice in terms of coping with this situation?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, you know, because I think a few days ago, a company in the US got flagged for firing people, 900 people via Zoom. Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that you are not alone. That is one. Recognize that it's not about you, and recognize that. So a lot of times, you know, I think when things go wrong, and because human beings, it's natural for us to have a negativity bias, we tend to think that the fault lies with us. But actually, there is nothing wrong with you. And in these times, I think it's very important to bring in self-compassion. So what does self-compassion mean? It actually means, you know, treating yourself the same way that you would treat a very good friend. So, you know, a lot of times when we talk to ourselves, sometimes it could be a little bit negative, you know, why did I get myself into this situation, for example?
Yeah, but also this person wants to know, like, how to deal with the abruptness of it. Like, bing, you just get an email and life is changed completely.
Yeah, so I think support is very important as well. So self-compassion is one. First is, you know, being aware of how you're feeling, right? And then having that mindfulness to accept what you're feeling. And then after that, you know, the second piece would be common humanity and knowing that you're not alone. And then the third piece is really about being kind to yourself, you know, telling yourself that it's all right. And it's not all right, but it's all right to feel the way you're feeling and being kind to yourself. So the second thing would be getting social support, of course, you know, making sure that you get the right avenues to seek the answers, to understand why, if there is someone to talk to, and friends, family, support from friends and family, talking about it is important as well, especially managing that emotional frustration and the confusion that could happen. Yeah, so I think really a huge part lies with self-management as well.
Folks,
okay.
We've been getting so many wonderful questions. We're not going to be able to answer all these questions, but guess what? We will be addressing the questions after the webinar and also uploading insights together with the recording onto our website. I'm going to jump, Swee, into a different point with you, if you don't mind. Another question that's been raised, which I think is very interesting. There's a need for workplace wellness to be in place, such as wellness programs. What are the ones that companies should consider should be essential in terms of wellness programs in the workplace? Your thoughts on this?
Okay, I think for a lot of the clients I see, most people understand the core concepts of eating well. It's just whether they practice it. So the ones that I believe companies should start to emphasize are mental and emotional resilience type programs, teaching people how to cope better with stress, and what the resilience could be like doing that. So let me illustrate some of the things that companies can do. You can set aside a budget. You can put these programs in place. You can even allocate individual course fees for people to do programs so they have more privacy besides group coaching. But more importantly, I think one of the things I would encourage companies to think about is have their senior leaders or heads of department open up and give the gift of authenticity, share their own stories of how they're doing their best to cope with stress or challenges. Because if they're not doing this and not walking the talk, people won't reach out and take these programs. They'll still feel very stigmatized using them. And change starts from the top. You need the right group of leaders to start embracing the change and sharing their personal stories and saying, it's okay, we've all been there.
Eating in place, sharing, maybe carving out some spaces like lunchtime is sacrosanct. That's for you. But also be mindful if you're the leader of the organization, don't say you went for a 5-star massage at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and that's how you're dealing with your mental wellness, right? Be sensitive to the tone of what's happening.
Exactly.
That's a good point. At the end of this segment, I might go over by about 5 minutes. If everybody can stay around, I'll definitely wrap up by 11:05. Don't worry. I'm going to get the top 3 tips from all of our panelists about, things that we can do for optimum well-being. So stay tuned for that. I'll wrap up by 11:05. Let's take another question. Serina, it goes to what you were talking about earlier, the idea of being able to log off and create spaces and things like that. This person asked, we may be able to disengage after working hours or the weekend, but employers may have a different time zone and they expect us to respond. Failure to respond equates to incapability and incompetency. How do we manage that? This inability to respond is the new form of what used to happen in the office, isn't it? Where you stay until the boss leaves. Don't leave before the boss leaves. It's just a new form now, isn't it?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's okay to say no.
Is it really?
It is okay to say no, but in a very respectful way, right? So for example, if I am feeling like I have too many calls today, and then suddenly another call request comes up, it could be from my boss, okay? It doesn't matter who it's from. It could be from my client. But if I feel that my emotional tank is running low, then what I could do to this request is, well, I'm actually running a bit tight today. Do you mind if we do this call at another time? And, I have a few things that I have to wrap up today, and I want to make sure that I'm at my best when I'm talking with you. So do you mind? So an understanding boss will not throw you under the bus for doing that. So I think at the end of the day, it's really about how do we communicate? And sometimes, if we have unrealistic deadlines, how do we negotiate proper deadlines and making sure that we have enough time? A lot of it comes down to how are we addressing situations and being solution oriented as well. So instead of giving our boss a problem, we go to our boss with a solution. Instead of going to our boss with one solution, we give them 2 solutions, plan A or plan B. So this is really about managing up as well. So managing people, it's not just about managing downwards, it's also about managing up and managing our peers, our clients as well.
Thank you so much for everybody's questions. I want to go to the top 3 tips. Again, pen and paper, take it out, everybody. I've got mine because these are going to be good ones. The top 3 tips that we can offer all our viewers of the webinar right now in terms of how we can attain optimum mental well-being, how we can build that mental resilience for 2022, which is right around the corner. So we want to start things off fresh with a great start. Maria, let me start with you. What would you say are your top tips to attain optimal mental well-being?
All right, so Daniel, I do have a slide that talks about SPEAR. So I'm going to just end with another acronym, and it is going to be SPEAR. And S is for support. Look out for the support that you need when needed. We talk about mental health is not a weakness, and therefore it is okay to reach out to people. P is positive self-talk. Serina and I believe Swee is also talking about this a bit more on the details, right? How we can ensure that we're focused on our thoughts. When we have a lot of that negative thoughts, what do we deal with it? Exercise, eat well, sleep enough, exercise, go out and walk, Make sure that you have the healthy habits. A is awareness. This is the important one. You need to know what does your body say. If you're not feeling well, if you're having a lot of the tension, that's where you can do something about it. So awareness is the key. And R is rest. Whether it is rest in getting enough sleep or even taking a pause during a busy day, these are important. So through this, I just want to, just put it all together and say that when there are challenges in life, I hope that you can spear through them. All right, so support, positive self-talk, exercise, awareness, and rest.
I love your use of acronyms, Maria. It really helps us remember things, I think. And if for anybody who's saying, easier said than done, this applies to any health issue. I mean, trying to follow tips to lose weight for your diabetes is hard. Trying to increase exercise to manage your heart condition is hard as well. Nothing is easy in that sense, but having these tips and trying and do some of that support, some of that positive self-talk, some of that exercise, some of that awareness. If you miss some of it now and then, you don't have to beat yourself up for it, right? You don't have to do all the spear all the time. You can try some of it first and get better. Correct, Maria?
Yes. Choose whatever you find that is helpful.
Very, very helpful indeed. Serina, let me come to you. Your top tips on what do you think we can offer individuals to help attain optimal well-being?
Right. So I've got some slides as well, but I'll just go through very quickly. The first is to nurture positive emotions. And there are a lot of positive emotions that we could cultivate other than ruminating on our life's problems. So there are things like gratitude, you'll see on this slide, serenity, interest, hope, amusement, having a sense of humor in your life, going for nature, to cultivate a sense of awe. So all these have been found to reduce stress and improve mental well-being. And then the second piece, if we could move on to the next slide.
Oh, we'll do it on our end. No worries. Carry on.
Okay, so I have time to go through probably only 2 of these positive emotions, and one is gratitude. And a very good exercise that every one of you could try out is called 3 good things. So at the end of the workday, instead of just scrolling through your social feeds, which really does nothing to help you, one good practice would be to think about 3 good things that went well today and to write it down. So it could be, one example could be, today I managed to take a walk at the beach, counting the little blessings and talking about why and how it made you feel. It made me feel in awe and it made me feel very joyful. And it happened because I was able to make time for it and because we had good weather today. So going through 3 good things, exercise for at least 1 week, it has shown to boost higher levels of happiness. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is cultivating serenity, which is a sense of calm. So a very important thing and very easy to practice, your breath is always with you. When you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling agitated, when you're anxious, breathe. And there are many different ways to breathe, through belly breathing, which is really, it provides, a good exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body, breath counting, and there's also mindful breathing. There are a lot of good apps like Calm, Headspace, Mindfy, and my favorite, Insight Timer. There are also mindful breathing clips on YouTube, and you can just take as little as 2 minutes a day to breathe, or you could take like 5 minutes. So it's really up to you. But the studies have shown that the magic number is 12 minutes a day of breathing, and it's going to rewire your mind.
12 minutes a day. I use some of those apps. You're right. They're very helpful. And my Apple Watch reminds me to take those breathing moments. You can use technology to help you achieve those 12 minutes. 3 good things. I love that suggestion. I've got a book at the side on my bedside table. I do my 3 good things every night. I make sure it's the last thing I see rather than my mobile phone. So it's my 3 good things, and then I knock off. I'm going to end off, Swee. I want you to have the last word.
Thank you.
What would you recommend in terms of the top tips for optimum mental well-being?
Okay, excellent. And I've also got a couple of slides. So if we could switch to those. I'd like people to first think about their mind, and their mind is like a garden. You can choose to grow flowers or you can grow weeds. And if you look at this image of this plant, I see flowers, but this is a very aggressive weed in North America. So I'm showing you this image because the images and the stories you're telling yourself, the perspective is all that truly matters. You're the only person in control of your thoughts. To me, this is a beautiful plant. It's called cow's parsnip. To other people, it's a weed. It's all about perspective. Next slide, please. And we'll speed up through the next page. So I want to touch on a point that Maria has raised up several times, and we can just speed through all the animation on this for the purpose of time. Okay, go back up one slide. So Maria basically talked about think, feel, and act. And this is basically a cognitive behavioral therapy that a lot of therapists and coaches will use with clients. It starts off with the stories and the beliefs you're telling yourself. And those generally fall into two categories, pain or pleasure. And they come with the associated feelings with them. And then that leads to actions or your behaviors. Now, the thing is, a lot of us get stuck in our thinking. We get stuck in our beliefs, and we call these negative looping thoughts. Ruminating over negativity also helps. And I'm also using this one to go to that gentleman's question about, being told that his job was gone in such an insensitive way by email. But think about how your thoughts and beliefs and feelings are really going to help you now. I'd like to move to the next slide, please. And in the next slide, again, let's think about the spectrum of feelings. So Maria talked about red, orange, and green, and I'm just simplifying it to say the pain is in red, pleasure's in green, and in between it's a spectrum of feelings, right? And I think all of us can feel different degrees of this, but it's becoming self-aware of what is my degree of feeling? Is it very extreme or is it mild? So watching out for that. But once you've understood that our thoughts can cause these spectrums of feeling and pain and pleasure, what do we do about it? And I'm going to end up with 4 simple questions that I want people to remember. Final slide. Okay, so use your feelings as your inner guidance. Whenever you feel bad, right? Any of those red zone or orange zone type feelings, I want you to first ask these 2 questions. What am I feeling? So, second question then is, what is my focus or my thoughts? And I'd like to illustrate this from an actual work case situation I was in. I was doing a workshop, and this was 3-4 years ago before QR codes became the norm. And instead of doing a survey to be sent through people's WhatsApp, my client actually said to me, oh, I want you to go figure out how to use QR code. This will be so much quicker and simpler. Remember, this is 3 to 4 years ago before QR codes became ubiquitous. In that moment, I'm just going to share my own example. What was I feeling? I was feeling uncomfortable, worried. I'd never done QR codes before. I didn't know how to generate them. I felt stressed and very pressured. What was my focus or thoughts? It's going to take too much time. It's going to be technically hard. And oh my God, how much will it cost to get an app or a program to generate a QR code for me? So my mind, I think Serina also said this, our minds are trained to go negative to help protect us. That's actually what it's trying to do. It heightens things. But this is the magic of breaking the cycle with the CBT, breaking those negative looping thoughts. Just catch yourself feeling bad and just say, wait, hold on. I'm in control of my thoughts. What do I do now if I want to feel better? So question 3, what would I like to feel? I want it to feel calm. I want it to feel very practical and efficient, and I actually want it to feel smart about it. Question 4, what focus or thoughts will serve that? And I thought, Google search. Since I want it to be fast and quick and free, type in those keywords together with QR code, I bet an answer will pop up. And so those were then the necessary actions I needed. I just moved through that process in about 5 minutes or less. But the trick is to catch yourself from feeling bad with the negative looping thoughts, break that with your light bulb moment and move towards the green zone. So this
CBT.
keeps you moving forward.
I like that. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Remember these 4 questions, move forward so that you're not stuck stuck in the quagmire there as well. Swee, I'm going to wrap things up. I want to thank all our panelists for joining us. And I want to remind each and every one of you, while we've got wonderful tips and tricks and modalities that each and every one of you can employ, bear in mind, if you do feel that the mental health and the stressors are affecting your quality of life, don't forget, it is possibly necessary in your case to seek some professional help. And it's always a good idea to start with your health professional. You can work with your GP or your family practitioner. I've got on screen now some great resources that perhaps you might want to check out as well. For example, mindmind.sg for some tools, tips, and resources, or the Wiser app, which is an AI chatbot, and it's free to use for Singaporeans as well, where you can submit questions anonymously and get some advice and get pointed in the right direction. Maybe this will give you the impetus as well if you're faced, or maybe if you're in that red zone and you want to get some advice about where to go to next. So those are some useful resources that you could check out as well. I've got a last poll, last one before I let everybody go, because I want to know how you felt about today's edition of the Executive Insights. Very quickly, if you can just answer us, I'd love to hear from you. I have benefited from the webinar's salient tips in cultivating mental resilience and strategies to manage well-being for a stronger mind. Do you strongly agree? Do you agree? Are you neutral? Do you disagree? Do you strongly disagree? There needs to be another option saying the host was amazing, but never mind. So go ahead, please, and select one of those options. We'd love to hear from you. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. And guess what? You'll be receiving an EDM with a link to watch this over again if you want to pick up on some of the key points. So don't forget, you can check into your email inbox. It'll be posted up on our Mediacorp website. And of course, I look forward to welcoming you to more executive insights by Mediacorp. That'll be coming your way in 2022. I'm going to start employing many of the options and tools that we learned on today's edition. Thank you so much to our guests, Maria Plengsangtip from iGROW CorpHealth, Swee from our Aura Group, and Serina Tan from Brewer Consulting. Ladies, have a beautiful day. Thank you very much, every one of you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Bye,
so
everybody.
much.
See you soon.
Bye.